Perspective tonight at 9:30, just after the full view. Of course, SABC News at 9. Let's have a look now at some other news. The Afro Barometer meter has released the latest survey on South African attitudes towards political parties, the upcoming elections and the Independent Electoral Commission. Well, what do current voter bases suggest and who do they consist of? Well, for more on this, we are now joined by Gugu Nonjinge from our communications coordinator, the communications coordinator for Southern Africa from the Afro Barometer from our Sea Point studios in Cape Town. A very good evening to Ms. Nonjinge. We thank you very much for your time. Essentially, what stood out was that 62% from the survey is saying that they were willing to forfeit elections if they were guaranteed to have jobs, security and housing. What does that say?
I mean, that shows us, as much as those are the non-partisan voters in South Africa, it also shows that the number of people and the specific people show their support for the elections, and that could also have an impact on the democratic system within the country. However, it does show some level of distrust again for the political parties and again for the electoral system in the country.
Yeah, no, also we saw that the ANC, according to the statistics at hand, show that they would still hold a majority vote with just over 47%, 48%.
Definitely. I mean, it's not necessarily saying that those numbers will translate into voter turnout when it comes to the 2019 general elections, whatever. However, it says that if elections were to be held tomorrow, 48% of the population in the country say that they'll choose the ANC or the DA and the EFF.
Now, when we compare this to previous years and previous surveys done, has the ANC been able to maintain, their voter count? And let's have a look also how the opposition parties are comparing in contrast.
I mean, when we look at other political parties, again, they are sharing an equal number of voter support. However, we do see that with the EFF, it has gained about 2 percentage point increase on voter support, with with about 6 percentage point decrease, which is a bit something that the political parties might need to look into in terms of tapping into the voter base in the country.
In terms of the survey, what are we seeing translating with regard to voter participation and voter attitudes towards next year's elections?
I think what the survey pretty much shows, it kind of paints a picture for us in the country in terms of what's happening, and also to take note of all the other political things that have been happening in the country, and also to note that this is what the citizens are saying, and also what should current government or the current policy makers look into, be it providing jobs, be it focusing on the quality of education in the country. However, it is a bit of a look and feel of what's happening currently in the ground. Yeah,
let's also have a look at the voter base there. Just take us through some of the characteristics of the demographics that we're seeing. Are we seeing a better representation of youth coming forward? If we just have a look at the past 2 years or so, with the uprisings on student campuses, the youth voicing their opinions and their concerns with government, and then also there are the issues of unemployment with regards to voter participation of those that are actually unemployed.
I mean, definitely, we looked at the demographics of the people that's saying that they would actually participate in next year's elections. You can see that actually there are very few young people that say that they would show up for elections, and also the majority of these people are based in urban South Africa, and also I think majority of them have secondary education and post-secondary education. And with the current unemployment rate, that kind of tells and paints a story in terms of young people, yes, might not be showing up at elections next year. They might again do show up at the elections. However, what we need to credit though is the fact that young people are not interested in political participation. However, zoom in the fact that young people are finding other ways of participating politically and also taking action and taking their stand.
Now, you've mentioned that there might not necessarily be a huge participation on the political front, but just take us through what the reaction has been on the ground from voters in terms of the recent corruption scandals that we've seen, the fraud scandals, and these include political parties across the spectrum?
I mean, on the ground currently, we can see that majority of the people that were surveyed by the Afro Barometer do not trust a number of public institutions, and that includes the IEC. And I think that's something that we need to look into as a country. The one institution that we trust to carry us through our national elections and our general elections is not trusted by the citizens, and that also could be a danger to the democratic processes within the country.
Have there been other notices highlighting that political parties aren't transparent enough?
Not necessarily. I mean, we do not do follow-up questions for our surveys. However, within the trust questions, we can see that courts and police are also trusted by citizens. However, the office of the president is the one that's most trusted, and we'd like to gauge and see why is that. But I think that's also something that our current government needs to look into as well.
Yeah, definitely. Let's also just go back to the opposing parties and the growth that we've seen. It seems, according to the survey, if I'm not mistaken, that the DA and the EFF, if one had to vote tomorrow, would both have 11% of the votes.
Definitely, they both have 11% voter support in terms of the number of people that were surveyed, and we have about 48% for the ANC, which means close to half of the South African population would show up and actually vote for the African National Congress. And mostly, a majority of other parties within the country share the 4% that you might be seeing in the charts. This could also, again, not translate into voter turnout. As we have seen, anything could happen between now and the next elections. However, what we can note is that the survey was done between October and September 2018, and between then, there was a lot happening within the political climate in the country, and citizens clearly were not happy with certain parties and what's been happening.
In the last election, we saw a political shift, specifically in Johannesburg, with regards to some municipalities and metros being taken over by the DA. Take us through the type of voter that the DA or the EFF would be getting in terms of whether it would be a woman, would it be a black African? Take us through some of those characteristics.
I mean, when we disaggregate the data, especially when we're looking at this party support, you can see that for the ANC, majority of the people that support the party are based in rural South Africa, are black South Africans. A majority of them it's also a mixed bag of men and women, whereas for the EFF, mostly men support the EFF, and the large support will come from areas in the Northern Cape, and for the DA, again, the large majority of the people that support the party in the Western Cape, and for the ANC, it is the Eastern Cape.
Thank you very much for just breaking down some of the statistics in the survey. That was Gugu Nonjinge, the communications coordinator for Southern Africa from Afro Barometer from our Sea Point studios on Cape Town. Just giving us the latest survey there by Afro Barometer on South African attitudes, as well as the voting sentiment, and also the trust or the distrust that some South Africans have in the Independent Electoral Commission. We'll take